we are at the Innovation Week with techNL. We're in historic St. John's. It's wonderful to be here in Newfoundland and Labrador. So much happening in the technology sector in this place right now. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Sure. So my name is Johanna. I'm the Vice Chair of techNL. I also work in enterprise sales at Verafin, but I've been part of our local tech community for the last 14 years in a sales capacity.
Wow, so Vice Chair at techNL. Tell me about what that role involves.
Sure. So I got involved with techNL about 5 years ago, and it's funny because I lived here, I worked here, I was in the tech sector, but I think I really had kind of my head down for a long time, and I didn't really understand what the local community looked like. So I started at Vision 33, and I worked there for 10 years, and so we were working all over the US, the UK, across Canada. So I thought I knew the tech sector, but I didn't know the local tech sector, and then when I joined techNL, I actually got to see what that looked like and all the work that everyone is doing. So what techNL is doing, but what every individual company does for our sector and how involved they are, how they collaborate, all the partners. The ecosystem is enormous, and I just really had no idea.
So you were like the perfect person to have on your team. You were head down working, had no idea what was going on around you, just doing what had to be done every day. Tell me what it was like when you were able to get up at that 30,000 foot view and have a look around. What did you see? What were your first impressions? Was it really overwhelming to you?
Sure. Well, even, as of 5 or 6 years ago, the tech sector looked so different. And so I worked with, like I said, Vision 33, which was one of the first tech companies here 25 years ago now. And so they've been around for a long time, but there weren't a lot of tech companies when they started. Really, they started out of school, 2 engineers at the time. And then they started 2 tech companies, and it grew from there. So when I heard about kind of their backstory, there was not a tech community. There was not startups happening. There were not those startups going to mid-sized companies. It was just there were a handful of companies. And now, even as of 6 years ago, you look and there is a community, right? There's lots more supports in place. It's thriving. So there's startups and more startups every day that start. Then there are companies moving into that mid-size, employing more people here. There are people that are medium-sized moving into that larger size company, which is great because then when you have that's a healthy balance, then you can have the right talent here and you can attract talent to be here, and it all works together to grow the community. And
of course, one of the big success stories of late is of course Verafin. Well, what's the experience like working at Verafin for you?
Sure. So it's funny. I mean, I did work in tech for 14 years, but you've heard about their culture, and I've only worked there for 2 years, but you've heard about their culture, and it definitely kind of rings true. They just think differently. They really, like, when you think of a typical tech company, you think agile, innovative, collaborating, moving things forward. They do that, but I would say they also have this kind of underlying Newfoundland both grit and funny to them. They can kind of tackle problems in a way that makes sense, and so it's been a really great experience kind of I see how they grew to how successful they are now. Of
course, there'll be a lot of people looking at that as a secret sauce, right? A recipe for success. How do we replicate that? And I love the way you describe it. It's almost like we're not taking ourselves too seriously here, but we know what needs to be done. They seem to be a company that understands it's important to be focused on something and achieve that.
Sure. Well, I mean, founded by 3 engineers who are very data-driven people. But one thing that I found really refreshing as well is it wasn't just around, obviously, data and metrics, really important at every conversation for a tech company now. But they also self-educated, which is what a lot of entrepreneurs and founders have to do. You don't know everything, but you can solve a problem, and so you take a step forward, and then you take another step forward, and you keep figuring it out. And so what I like about their story is that they went and read a lot of books about things they didn't know. So understanding where you can kind of grow is a big piece of entrepreneurship as well.
Now, you touched on before, like the importance of the small, medium, and the larger size companies providing a nice runway for people to come in. Workforce and the development of the next generation, that must be top of mind for you in the larger role with techNL?
Definitely. So whenever we talk to anyone in our industry, two things always come up, and it's always around talent. One is around the actual kind of software development skill sets. We need more. And the other side is on the sales front. And so you need to be able to bring technical products to market and sell them in a meaningful way and be able to scale that process. So those are two big areas. But we talk about, 6 years ago it looked very different. 12 months ago it looked very different. So in the next 12 to 24 months, we will have the province's first innovation center. That's a huge announcement. That's going to be both a hub and an economic driver. We're also going to have upskilled over 2,500 people within Newfoundland and Labrador to be tech or tech enabled and join that workforce. So it's going to be a game changer for our province.
The Innovation Center to me represents a perfect collaboration of government, industry, and academia all working together for the benefit of everybody. That philosophy of a rising tide here floats all boats.
Right.
It must be very exciting for you to watch that come out 14 years in and around this tech sector, to see this happening in front of your eyes. Now, what's it feel like?
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's the thing. We talk about the collaboration within the community, but everyone has to work together. So there's a lot of amazing companies doing amazing things, and there's a lot of really amazing innovators, and the ecosystem is awesome. So you have both provincial support, federal support, you have amazing companies like the Genesis Center who have a remarkable impact on our tech sector. You have techNL, you have industry associations. I mean, everyone can benefit from an innovation center because every company is in some way, shape, or form a tech company now. No one is solving any challenges without using technology in some way, shape, or form.
Exactly right. And I also, what I love about this sector right now at the moment is that very inclusive.
Yeah.
They understand that this is a big tent. Everybody's welcome here, and they also understand that the more diverse views on things that we can get, the stronger the solution's going to be. Agree?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually that's a big focus, I would say, across the board for everyone, increasing the diversity. So there is right now, I mean, it is still a male-dominated industry. And so I know, like in sales, for instance, I think it's 25% of people might be female identifying in sales. So how do we change that? And that's across the board. But one of the focuses for the ESCC program, where we're going to upskill over 2,500 people, is a big focus on diversity and equity deserving groups, and how do we include them. And so, I remember going through school at some point, and I remember hearing a teacher say at some point, like when you're doing business, you want to kind of fit in. That's what you want to do. For instance, if you went to a conservative place, you might not wear a nose ring. And I remember thinking like, oh, okay, yeah. And then I got a nose ring when I was an adult. And, I'm a member of the queer community. And then I went to a conservative state to do business. And I remember thinking like, someone from 20 years ago was not thinking this is a good idea. But then you go there and you're there to solve a problem, and you're there to partner with people, and it's a great experience in the end.
I can tell you, it's clear from being in conversation with you how passionate you are about this sector and about what it is that you guys do collectively here. What are you most excited about on the near horizon?
So I think it's really kind of all the work that everyone's been doing. This sector is a different place than 5 years ago. It is going to be an incredibly different place in the next 5 years. So I think fortifying the work we've done, even with the focus on increasing diversity, equity deserving groups, making sure there's talent, making sure that there's people that are able to immigrate and work here, making sure that we're kind of listening to our members and understanding, because the thing in tech is everything is changing. So you can't take anything as its current state. So fortifying the work that's been done, and then also working with our sector to understand what else needs to be done and how do we help bridge that gap for people.
An absolute pleasure to be in conversation with you. Thanks very much for joining us and telling us your vision. And it's, again, I'll say it again, you can feel your excitement. So thanks very much.
Thank you.